My daughter-in-law, Amanda, loved telling people how my mind was starting to go. She'd say it with a sigh, her brow furrowed with that practiced look of concern she'd perfected over the years. "She gets so confused," she'd whispered to my son David over the dinner table while I was just in the next room. "She misplaces everything. Just yesterday, she swore I moved her favorite teapot." The teapot, of course, was always right where I'd left it on the kitchen counter, but by the time I'd get there to point it out, it would mysteriously be inside the pantry. She hoped to have me declared incompetent, to get her perfectly manicured hands on the money my late husband and I worked our entire lives to save. But she made one critical mistake. She thought because I was old, I was stupid. All right, everyone, if you're ready for this journey, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this a like so you don't miss the updates. And let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. It's always lovely to see where everyone is. All right, let's get into it. My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 67, and I've been a widow for 5 years now. My husband, Robert, was the love of my life. He was an engineer, a man who believed in structure, in things making sense. He left me well provided for, not rich in a flashy way, but comfortable. We have a beautiful home in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind with oak trees that are older than anyone on the block, and my finances are, as Robert would have said, shipshape. I have my routines, my garden, my book club, and my 2 beautiful grandchildren, Leo and Maya. My life was peaceful, orderly. Then Amanda decided to burn it all down for a payout. When my son, David, first brought her home, I'll admit she was dazzling. Polished is the word that comes to mind. Not a hair out of place, a smile that could sell sand in the desert, and a talent for saying exactly what you wanted to hear. She gushed over my garden, complimented my quilt making, and told David he was the luckiest man in the world to have a mother like me. I was hopeful. All you ever want for your kids is for them to be happy, and David looked at her like she was the sunrise. The change was gradual. At first, it was just little things, easily dismissed. She'd help me in the kitchen and rearrange all my spice jars. "Just thought alphabetical would be easier for you to find things, hun," she'd say sweetly. I've used the same system for 40 years. I could find the paprika with my eyes closed. Then it was comments disguised as care. "Eleanor, are you sure you should be driving at night? Your eyes aren't what they used to be." Or, "Maybe I should handle paying your bills online for you. It can be so confusing, all those passwords." Each suggestion was a tiny chip at the stone of my independence. My David, bless his heart, is a good man, but he has his father's trusting nature, without his father's shrewd eye for detail. He saw a loving wife concerned for his aging mother. He didn't see the long game Amanda was playing. The gaslighting started in earnest about a year ago. It became her full-time job. I'd have friends from my bridge club over, and Amanda would make a point of joining us, steering the conversation to my little memory lapses. She'd tell a story about how I'd gone to the grocery store and forgotten my wallet, a story that was completely fabricated. My friends would give me these pitying looks, and I'd just smile and say, "Oh, Amanda, you're getting me mixed up with one of your mother stories again." I'd play it off, but inside, a cold knot of dread was tightening. How do you prove a negative? How do you prove you didn't forget something that never happened in the first place? The teapot incident was a turning point. It was a beautiful, hand-painted piece Robert had bought me on a trip to England. I use it every single morning. On Tuesday, it was gone. I looked everywhere. I knew I had left it on the drying rack the night before. Amanda was there with the kids, and she launched into this big performance. "Oh, Mom, think hard. Where did you put it? Let's retrace your steps." She had David looking under sofas in the linen closet. The whole time, she had this little smirk on her face. Finally, she found it. It was in the bottom of the laundry hamper. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, her voice dripping with phony sympathy. "See, this is what we're worried about." David just looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion that broke my heart. He didn't see her glide into the kitchen an hour earlier while I was in the garden. He didn't see her pluck the teapot from the rack and slip it into her oversized tote bag. I did. I saw it from the window over the sink. I just didn't say anything. Because I knew, even then, that a straight accusation would only make me sound like the crazy old woman she was painting me to be. At that moment, I realized I wasn't in a family disagreement. I was in a war. He was about to get exactly what he deserved, and I had a front row seat. Don't go anywhere. After the teapot, Amanda escalated things. She convinced David that for my own safety, she should have a key to my house. "What if she falls, David? What if there's an emergency and we can't get in?" So my son, my own son, gave his viper of a wife a key to my home, my sanctuary. I started feeling like a guest in my own life. She'd pop over unannounced, always under the guise of checking in on me. She'd open my mail, telling me she was helping me sort the junk from the important stuff. She'd go through my pantry and throw things out. "This is past its expiration date, Eleanor. You could get sick." The date would be for next year. Her campaign was clever. I'll give her that. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Every action was couched in love and concern. She was a master manipulator, and she had my son wrapped so tightly around her finger that he couldn't see the truth even when it was right in front of him. The final straw, the thing that pushed her to go for the kill shot, was a conversation she overheard between me and my financial advisor. Robert had left me some stock in a small tech company he'd believed in years ago. It hadn't been worth much for a long time, but Robert had always said, "Just hold on to it, Ellie. The fundamentals are good." Well, it turns out he was right. The company had a breakthrough, and that stock, which had been sitting quietly in my portfolio for 20 years, was suddenly worth a small fortune. I'm not talking mansions and yachts, but enough to make someone like Amanda, who spent money like it was on fire, salivate. I was discussing with my advisor about setting up a trust for my grandchildren's college education. Amanda was in the house that day, uninvited, of course, and I know she heard me. Her concern for my well-being went into overdrive. Suddenly, it wasn't just about my memory, it was about my financial vulnerability. She started talking about scammers who target the elderly. She told David that I'd mentioned a nice young man who called me about a fantastic investment opportunity. It was another lie, a seed planted to make David believe I was on the verge of giving all my money away to a con artist. That's when she pulled out the big guns. "David," I heard her say one night, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion, "I've been doing some research. I think your mom might be showing early signs of dementia. We need to get her evaluated for her own protection." And with that, the trap was set. They booked an appointment with a geriatric specialist and pushed me into going. Amanda's goal was simple: get a doctor to write the word dementia on my chart. That word would be her golden ticket. It would be the first step to getting power of attorney, to taking control of my house, my portfolio, and everything Robert and I had built together. She sat in that doctor's office, holding my hand, telling the doctor about all my symptoms, her face a perfect mask of worried devotion. I just sat there, quiet, letting her talk, letting her build her own cage. She thought she was boxing me in,
but all she was really doing was handing me the blueprint to her own destruction. She had completely underestimated me. I may be a 67-year-old widow who likes to garden, but my mind is a steel trap. Robert used to say I could have been a detective. I notice things. And lately, I had been noticing a lot about Amanda. Her late-night yoga classes, her sudden business trips for her part-time event planning job, the little credit card slips I'd find in the pocket of her coat when I hung it up for her, slips from fancy downtown hotels and restaurants I knew David had never been to. Amanda had a secret, a big, expensive one, and I was about to use her own tactics against her. My failing memory was about to become my greatest weapon. She wanted to stage a show? Fine. I was about to give her the performance of a lifetime. It started with her big idea, family therapy, to help us all deal with my condition. I smiled and agreed it was a wonderful idea. I couldn't wait. So there we were, walking into the family therapist's office. The room was what I call aggressively beige. Bland paintings on the wall, a couple of sad-looking fiddle leaf trees, and a box of tissues on every available surface. It was a space designed to be calming, but my heart was pounding like a drum solo, not from fear, but from anticipation. Amanda was in her element, oozing counterfeit concern. She held my arm tightly, a proprietary gesture meant to show the therapist, Dr. Miller, how supportive she was. She'd picked out a particularly matronly outfit for me to wear, a drab lavender cardigan set. I looked the part she had cast me to be, the frail, confused old woman.
My son David just looked miserable. His shoulders were slumped, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. He was caught in the middle, bless his heart. He loved me, and he loved his wife, and he couldn't accept that one of us was a liar. He thought this therapy session was a step toward finding a solution, a way to manage my decline. Amanda, on the other hand, saw it as a performance review for her plan. She sat down, crossed her legs, and gave Dr. Miller a brilliant 1,000-watt smile. "Thank you so much for seeing us, doctor," she began, her voice smooth as cream. "We're all just so worried about Eleanor." Dr. Miller, a woman about my own age with sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, nodded and turned to me. "Eleanor, thank you for coming. Can you tell me in your own words why you think you're all here today?" I took a deep breath. "Showtime." "Well," I started, making my voice a little shaky, "it seems I've been muddled lately, forgetting things. David and Amanda are very good to me, but I know I've been a handful." I saw a flicker of triumph in Amanda's eyes. "What sort of things have you been forgetting?" Dr. Miller asked, gently. Amanda jumped in before I could answer. "Oh, everything, doctor. Names, appointments. The other day, she put her teacup in the laundry. She's started misplacing money. It's the financial part that's most worrying. We're afraid she'll be taken advantage of." Dr. Miller made a note, her face impassive. "Eleanor, is that how you see it?" "Oh, yes," I said with a sigh. "My head feels like a scrambled egg some days. Just the other day, I was trying to think of the name of David's business partner, the one he had that lunch with at the Fairmont last month. And for the life of me, all I could think of was Mark. Isn't that silly?" The effect was instantaneous. Amanda, who had been leaning forward looking engaged and caring, flinched. It was barely perceptible, like a fish twitching on a line. But I saw it. Dr. Miller saw it too. A little frown line appeared between her eyebrows. "The Fairmont, last month, a little detail I'd gleaned from a receipt that had fallen out of her purse when she dropped it on my kitchen floor. The name Mark I'd gotten from a tiny folded note that had fallen out with it, a scribbled phone number under his name. Just dumb luck on my part, but you take what you can get. David didn't react. He wouldn't know the name, but Amanda knew. I don't think David has a partner named Mark, Mom,"
she said, her voice a little too tight, her smile stretched thin. Oh dear, see, this is what I mean, I said, patting my own knee as if to scold it. Mark, Clark, David, all the names get jumbled up. And numbers. Numbers are the worst. I was looking at my bank statement this morning, trying to make sense of it all. This one number kept popping into my head. 28,450. Just floating around in there. 28,450. It doesn't mean a thing, but my silly brain got stuck on it. This time, Amanda went pale. I'm talking sheet white. $28,450 was the exact to-the-dollar amount in the separate savings account she had under her maiden name. How did I know? Because a few weeks back, she'd used my laptop to check on a flight for her mother. She must have thought I was completely clueless about technology because she didn't just close the browser window when she was done, she only minimized it. Later that evening, I sat down to look up a new rose varietal, and there it was, a Bank of America tab right there on the screen. I knew David banked with Chase. Curiosity is a powerful thing, my friends. A few clicks, and I was looking at a full statement. I took a picture of the screen with my phone and closed the window. It felt sneaky, but a general has to have good intelligence, right? She was starting to sweat, and we were only just getting started. Stick with me, because the tangled web she'd woven was beginning to unravel thread by glorious thread. David looked at her with concern. Amanda, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. She forced a laugh. It sounded like a piece of grinding metal. I'm fine. I have a headache. She shot me a look that was pure poison. If looks could kill, I would have been a pile of ashes on that beige carpet.
Dr. Miller was watching our little family drama with the focused intensity of someone watching a chess match. You mentioned forgetting dates too, Eleanor, she prompted. Oh, heavens, yes, I said, dabbing at my eyes with a tissue I'd brought for effect. Everything is a blur. I was trying to remember my anniversary with my dear Robert the other day. I kept thinking it was on the 18th. Then I thought, no, the 18th was the day little Maya had her ballet recital. But that's not right either. I think, was that the day David had his conference call downtown? No, wait, I'm all turned around. Amanda, darling, what was happening on the 18th and, the 25th of last month? You were out so late. My old mind gets the dates all tangled up with one another. The 18th and the 25th. The dates of 2 different room charges at 2 different boutique hotels in the city. More little paper trails from her coat pocket, small incidental expenses, dinner, a bottle of wine, a room service breakfast that she must have paid for in cash from her secret little fund, but she'd foolishly kept the itemized receipts. Maybe for her taxes? Who knows? Criminals can be so strangely practical sometimes. By now, Amanda looked like she was going to be physically sick. David was looking back and forth between us, a storm of confusion brewing on his face. He didn't have the pieces, but he could feel that something was profoundly wrong. The loving, concerned wife and the senile, confused mother, those roles were starting to blur, and the script Amanda had so carefully written was being shredded right in front of him. Mom, David said, his voice gentle but strained, I don't know what you're talking about. My conference call was on the 10th. The 10th? Oh, for heaven's sake, I cried, letting my head fall into my hands with a tissue I'd brought for effect. Everything is a blur. I was trying to remember my anniversary with my dear Robert the other day. I kept thinking it was on the 18th. Then I thought, no, the 18th was the day little Maya had her ballet recital. But that's not right either. I think, was that the day David had his conference call downtown? No, wait, I'm all turned around. Amanda, darling, what was happening on the 18th and, the 25th of last month? You were out so late. My old mind gets the dates all tangled up with one another. The 18th and the 25th. The dates of 2 different room charges at 2 different boutique hotels in the city. More little paper trails from her coat pocket.
Small, incidental expenses, dinner, a bottle of wine, a room service breakfast, that she must have paid for in cash from her secret little fund, but she'd foolishly kept the itemized receipts. Maybe for her taxes? Who knows? Criminals can be so strangely practical sometimes. By now, Amanda looked like she was going to be physically sick. David was looking back and forth between us, a storm of confusion brewing on his face. He didn't have the pieces, but he could feel that something was profoundly wrong. The loving, concerned wife and the senile, confused mother, those roles were starting to blur, and the script Amanda had so carefully written was being shredded right in front of him. "Mom," David said, his voice gentle but strained, "I don't know what you're talking about. My conference call was on the 10th. "The 10th? Oh, for heaven's sake," I cried, letting my head fall into my hands with a tissue I'd brought for effect. "Everything is a blur. I was trying to remember my anniversary with my dear Robert the other day. I kept thinking it was on the 18th. Then I thought, no, the 18th was the day little Maya had her ballet recital, but that's not right either. I think, was that the day David had his conference call downtown? No, wait, I'm all turned around. Amanda, darling, what was happening on the 18th and, oh, the 25th of last month? You were out so late. My old mind gets the dates all tangled up with one another." Dr. Miller adjusted her glasses and looked straight at Amanda. Her expression was completely unreadable. "She's certainly true that memory issues can present in this way," she said calmly. Then she turned her gaze to me, and for the briefest of moments, I saw a spark of something else in her eyes. Understanding? Intrigue? I couldn't be sure. However, the details are quite specific. "Eleanor," she said, her voice kind, "I'd like to meet with you alone next time, and perhaps we can run a few cognitive tests, just to get a baseline." Amanda looked like she'd been slapped. Meeting with me alone was not part of the plan. Her entire strategy relied on her being present to interpret, to correct, to spin my every word. The therapy session ended a few minutes later, the air thick with unspoken accusations. The car ride home was a study in silence. David drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Amanda stared out her window, her jaw clenched so tight I thought her teeth might crack. I had done it. I'd planted the seeds of doubt not only in my son's mind, but in the mind of a medical professional. Amanda thought she was pushing me onto a stage where I'd be declared insane. She never imagined I'd use that stage to start revealing her secrets, one muddled fact at a time. The game had changed. This wasn't just about defense anymore. This was my opening move in a campaign to take back my life, and I had no intention of stopping until the truth came out. The beautiful, liberating, and for Amanda, devastating truth. The silence in David's SUV on the way home was so heavy, you could have cut it with a knife. Amanda was practically vibrating with rage in the passenger seat, staring out the window with laser beam intensity, probably imagining all the ways she could run me over with a steamroller. David was gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him from flying apart. I, in the back seat, simply looked out the window, projecting an aura of serene, befuddled innocence. I hummed a little tune, something from Perry Como. It was just enough to dial up the tension to a nearly unbearable level. When we got back to my house, Amanda couldn't hold it in any longer. The second the front door clicked shut behind us, she whirled on me. "What was that?" she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. The mask of the loving daughter-in-law had been incinerated, and the real Amanda was on full display. "What kind of cruel, twisted game are you playing?" David stepped between us. "Amanda, honey, calm down. Mom is just confused." "Confused?" she screeched, all pretense of a headache gone. "She's not confused, she's malicious. Mark, the Fairmont, random numbers and dates? She's trying to poison you against me. Can't you see that? She's making things up to hurt me."
But, darling, I don't know anyone named Mark, I said, my voice trembling ever so slightly. He's just a name that popped into my head. I'm so sorry if I've upset you. My mind it gets tangled. I wrung my hands for good measure. It gets tangled with my life, she shot back. David looked at her, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes aimed not at me, but at her. The sheer vehemence of her reaction was out of proportion for someone responding to the ramblings of a confused old woman. A caring person would have been gentle. A guilty person reacts with rage. "David, that's enough," David said, his voice firm. "We'll talk about this later. Mom, you should probably get some rest." I gave him a watery smile and nodded, shuffling off towards my bedroom like a chastised child. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart hammering. The shouting match in the living room started up almost immediately. I couldn't make out all the words, just the rise and fall of their angry voices, her shrill accusations and his low, frustrated replies. The cat, as they say, was out of the bag, and it was clawing up all the furniture. A few minutes later, I heard the front door slam and the sound of Amanda's car peeling out of the driveway. Then, a soft knock on my bedroom door. "Mom, can I come in?" I opened the door to see my son looking 10 years older than he had that morning. He looked utterly lost. "I don't understand," he said, sinking down onto the small armchair in the corner. "Where did you get those names, those places?" I sat on the edge of my bed. This was a delicate moment. I couldn't push him too hard or reveal my hand. He had to get there on his own. "David, honey, I keep telling you they just come into my head, like puzzle pieces from different boxes. Maybe I heard the name Mark on the television. Maybe I saw an advertisement for that hotel. My brain is just messy right now." He ran his hands through his hair. "But the way she reacted, it was like you'd accused her of something." I looked at my hands, feigning shame. "I know, it feels like I did. I feel so terrible. Maybe the stress is making me paranoid. You know they say that can happen." It was the perfect thing to say, feeding into the narrative Amanda had built, but twisting it just enough to make him think. I wasn't just confused. Maybe I was confused and paranoid, inventing elaborate scenarios. It explained the specificity of my ravings. He stayed for another hour, and we talked about his father, about the kids, about everything except the woman who was currently driving a wedge between us. When he left, he hugged me tightly. "I love you, Mom," he whispered. "I love you too, sweetheart," I said. "More than you know." I watched him walk to his car, a man adrift in a sea of doubt. It was heartbreaking to see him in such pain, but it was necessary. Sometimes you have to let things break before you can fix them. And just when Amanda thought she could smooth things over with my son, she forgot who she was really dealing with now. Dr. Miller. I was about to present my case to the one person who could truly judge the facts without the baggage of family ties. The doctor's office was about to become my courtroom. My solo appointment with Dr. Miller was a week later. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing a smart navy blue dress. No drab cardigans this time. I walked in with my head held high, my purse clutched in my hand like a briefcase. The receptionist called my name, and I was led back to Dr. Miller's private office, not the beige therapy room. It was lined with books and had a large, sturdy wooden desk. It felt serious, substantial. Dr. Miller greeted me with a warm, professional smile. "Eleanor, thank you for coming back. Please, have a seat." We spent the first half hour on the cognitive tests. She had me draw a clock face, repeat lists of words, count backward from 100 by sevens, and identify patterns. It was the kind of stuff they show in movies when someone's mind is being evaluated. I performed every task calmly and precisely. I drew a perfect clock, pointing to 10 past 11. I recalled 15 out of 15 words. I sailed through the subtractions. I knew what this was about.
She had to rule out actual cognitive decline. She had to do her due diligence. When it was over, she set down her pen and folded her hands on her desk. "Well, Eleanor," she said, her expression giving nothing away, "your scores are well above average for a woman of your age. In fact, they're excellent by any standard. Your short-term recall is impeccable, as is your executive function."
I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. That's a relief to hear. "It is," she said, her eyes meeting mine, "which makes our last session all the more puzzling. The person I just tested is not the confused, muddled woman from last week's therapy session. So, Eleanor, please, tell me what is really going on." This was it, the moment of truth. "Dr. Miller," I began, my voice steady, "what I am about to tell you will sound theatrical, and you must understand, I am not a vengeful woman. I am a mother who loves her son and a grandmother who adores her grandchildren, but I am being systematically stripped of my autonomy and my credibility by my daughter-in-law, and I am terrified." For the next 20 minutes, I laid it all out. The misplaced items, the constant suggestions of my incompetence, the lies told to my son and my friends, and then the discovery of her secret life. I told her how I'd seen her take the teapot. I told her about the open browser tab on my laptop. And as I spoke, I reached into my purse. "I know that without proof, I'm just an old woman making wild accusations. Another paranoid delusion," I said, pulling out a small, folded piece of paper. I opened it and pushed it across the desk. It was a crisp, clear photo I had printed at the drugstore. A photo of the computer screen showing Amanda's secret bank account with her maiden name, Amanda Rosewood, clearly visible at the top, along with the balance, $28,450.32. Dr. Miller picked up the photograph. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she looked back up at me. The professional mask was gone. In its place was a look of profound, unadulterated shock. And then a slow smile spread across her face. It was a smile of validation, a smile that said, "Game on." Dr. Miller held the photograph of the bank statement like a winning lottery ticket. The clinical detachment was gone, replaced by a glint in her eye that was part professional outrage and part pure, unadulterated female solidarity. "Eleanor," she said, her voice a low murmur of astonishment, "this is extraordinary. The specificity of your confusions last week, the numbers, the names, it was a strategy." "A desperate one," I admitted. "If I had accused her directly, David would never have believed me. I would have sounded exactly like the hysterical, paranoid woman she was painting me to be. I had to plant the seeds in a way that would make them both wonder, especially Amanda. I needed to unnerve her, to make her feel exposed without knowing how." "You did more than unnerve her, Eleanor. You terrified her," Dr. Miller said, a note of admiration in her voice. She placed the photograph carefully on her desk. "What you are describing is a textbook case of psychological abuse and financial exploitation. Amanda's behavior is predatory." The validation in her words was like a balm on a burn I'd been tending for years. I hadn't realized just how heavy the burden of being disbelieved had been until that moment. "So, what do we do now?" I asked. Dr. Miller leaned forward. "Ordinarily, in a family therapy situation, my goal would be reconciliation and understanding. That is not the goal here. The goal here is to protect you and expose the truth.
Amanda forced you onto this battlefield, so we are going to use the tools she provided. Our next session is scheduled for Tuesday. I want you to come, but we are going to change the agenda. The plan she laid out was brilliant, elegant, and completely devastating. It relied on my strengths, my sharp mind, my acting skills, and on Amanda's weaknesses, her arrogance, her guilt, and her belief that she was the smartest person in any room. When Tuesday arrived, the atmosphere in the waiting room was arctic. Amanda and David sat on opposite ends of a small sofa, a chasm of resentment and suspicion between them. Amanda refused to look at me, but I could feel her anger radiating across the room. She was on edge, a cornered animal, which made her dangerous, but also predictable. We were led back to the beige therapy room. I took my seat, looking suitably frail and anxious. Amanda sat down and immediately went on the attack. "Dr. Miller, I have to say I'm very concerned about my mother-in-law's escalating paranoia. She seems to be creating these elaborate fictions. I'm worried she's becoming a danger to herself." Dr. Miller nodded calmly. "Thank you for sharing that, Amanda. We will certainly address Eleanor's state of mind. But today, I thought we might try a different exercise. It's a therapeutic technique for uncovering subconscious anxieties within a family system. It's called a financial disclosure narrative." "A what?"
It's simple, Dr. Miller said, her voice disarmingly pleasant. Each person takes a turn discussing their current financial health, any recent windfalls or unexpected expenses, and their future goals. It helps us understand the underlying financial pressures that can cause so much stress in a family. David, since you're the primary breadwinner, let's start with you. David looked uncomfortable, but he was a rule follower. He haltingly began to talk about his salary, the mortgage, the car payments, the kids' soccer leagues, standard middle-class anxieties. Then, Dr. Miller turned her gaze on Amanda. "Amanda, your turn." "This is ridiculous," Amanda scoffed, trying to regain control. "I'm a part-time event planner. My income is negligible. Our finances are David's department." "Nevertheless," Dr. Miller pressed gently, "have you had any significant financial events lately? An inheritance? A bonus?" "No," Amanda snapped. Her composure was cracking. Dr. Miller then turned to me. "Eleanor, how about you?" Here we go. I took a deep, shaky breath. "Well, as Amanda knows, I did recently have a bit of a windfall from my late husband's stock portfolio." "Yes," Dr. Miller said, making a note. "And do you have any concerns about that money?" "I do. I have this recurring fear. It's silly, I know. It's like a waking nightmare." David leaned forward. "What is it, Mom?" "I keep having this vision," I said, my voice cracking, "that there's a second account, a secret one, and all my money is being funneled into it, a little bit at a time. And the account, it's under a different name. My maiden name was Smith, but in my dream, the name on the account is Rosewood." Pin drop silence. David's head whipped around to stare at his wife. Rosewood was Amanda's maiden name. It was the name on the bank statement. Amanda's face crumpled. It was the panicked, incredulous look of a master chess player who had just been checkmated by a pawn. What did you just say?" David asked, his voice barely a whisper. "She's delirious," Amanda shrieked, jumping to her feet. "She's insane. You're believing the ravings of a senile old woman." Dr. Miller held up a hand. "Amanda, please sit down. Eleanor's anxieties, whether based in reality or not, are valid to discuss." Then she looked directly at my daughter-in-law, her expression as serious as a heart attack. "Amanda, do you have a bank account under your maiden name?"
No, that's an outrageous accusation. She lied, her eyes wide with panic. Dr. Miller calmly reached into a file folder on the table beside her. That's interesting, she said, pulling out a sheet of paper. Because it appears your mother-in-law is not only a gifted storyteller, but perhaps a bit of a psychic. She flattened the piece of paper on the table and turned it for David to see. It was a perfect high-resolution copy of the photograph I had given her, the one showing the Amanda Rosewood account with its tidy balance of over $28,000. The truth was out, and it was every bit as glorious and terrible as I had imagined. The aftermath was seismic. David stared at the paper, then at Amanda, then back at the paper. The trust he had in his wife evaporated in that single devastating instant. All the little inconsistencies, her wild defensiveness, my specific confusions, it all clicked into place for him. He saw the betrayal in its full technicolor ugliness.
Amanda completely fell apart. The articulate, polished woman was gone, replaced by a sobbing, sputtering mess of excuses. She'd opened it years ago. It was just for emergencies. The money was from her own family. Lie after lie tumbled out, each one more transparent than the last. David didn't say a word. He just stood up, looked at his wife with eyes I'd never seen before, cold and full of a quiet, settled rage, and said, "We're done." Then he turned to me, helped me out of my chair, and walked me out of the office, leaving her there with the ruins of her life scattered on the beige carpet. The divorce was messy, of course, but armed with Dr. Miller's testimony and the evidence I had gathered, not just the bank statement, but the hotel receipts and phone records David later uncovered, Amanda didn't stand a chance. David got full custody of the children, the house, and a settlement that left her with little more than her secret bank account, which her own lawyers bled dry in short order. She moved out of state, humiliated and exposed. I haven't seen her since. My life is quiet again. The oak trees outside are just as majestic as they ever were. The trust for Leo and Maya's college education is fully funded. My son visits with my grandchildren 3 times a week. Our relationship has healed, stronger than before, forged in the fire of a terrible truth. He still feels a mountain of guilt for not believing me sooner, but I keep telling him, "She fooled you because you are a good, trusting man." That's a virtue, not a flaw. Sometimes when I'm sitting in my garden, my teapot on the little table beside me, I think about Amanda. I don't feel anger anymore, just a profound sense of pity. She had everything: a loving husband, beautiful children, a comfortable life, and she was willing to destroy a vulnerable old woman to get just a little bit more. She gambled it all, convinced I was a feeble-minded fool. But she forgot the most important rule of the game: never, ever underestimate the person who has nothing left to lose. So now I put it to you all, my friends. I played my hand the only way I knew how, but I'm curious to know, if you had been in my place, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments.
So another story of my grandmother has sent, and be clicking here, you will have when more such stories.